Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Todd Christensen with CapEd Credit Union. We'd like to welcome everybody here to another one of our episodes and in our series of Lunch Money, a financial well-being webinar. We want to welcome you here. I have on screen here at the moment what we're going to be talking about today, but we also want to share with you a little bit of the other sessions that are coming up. We have a session coming up on Tuesday of next week, and then followed on Thursday of next week, so November 3rd and November 5th. We have CapEd's Chief Information Officer, Toby King. He will be presenting on cybersecurity, what is it, and then how to protect yourself online. Extremely valuable information. Some may question, why are we presenting information about cybersecurity and how to protect yourself online inside of a financial well-being or financial literacy webinar series? The purpose for this is the amount of fraud that takes place online. It's incredible, the number of fraudsters that are out there trying to take information, and Toby will talk about how to best protect your information online, because it does have a direct impact to your financial well-being to ensure that your information online is secure. But today we have with us again Nick Daniels and Kent Owings from their financial advisors with Tree City Advisors. And let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen so that they are able to come on screen. Good afternoon and welcome, Kent and Nick. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great, Todd.
Yep, doing good.
Thanks for having us back.
Absolutely, we appreciate that. Let's just jump right in. I know that Saturday is Halloween. We've talked a little bit about this week of how to take the fear out of investing. And I know that the conversation we had on Tuesday was filled with a lot of good information, great insights. We look forward to today's discussion on how we can continue to take out the fear. We also talk about a little bit of a crystal ball and what can you do to develop that crystal ball, primarily by your goals and objectives in your investing. So with that, let me turn it over to you, Nick and Kent.
Yeah, boy, this conversation couldn't be more timely. I don't know how many phone calls yesterday just to do a market update with our clients and what's going on, a lot of the fears, expectations, setting some expectations, and some strategies moving forward as well. But a lot of it, people, it's so easy for our human nature to get narrowly focused on today and right now. And so when doing retirement planning, it's people will be 10, 20 years out from retirement, or they'll have money. Even if you entered into retirement, you're going to be retired for 30 years. And they'll get so focused on the money they have that's planned for 20 years into the future and what's happening to that money right now, today, and they'll risk the overall plan for extra movement of right now of the risk today. And so we have a strategy, this bucket strategy that Nick will draw out for us today, and we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about some strategies with debt management and how that goes forward. We'll talk about pretending that the crystal ball exists and how detrimental that can be to your overall plan. And
I know I looked at my investment portfolio over the last couple of days, and my wife happened to glance over my shoulder and she goes, "Ooh, those are a lot of red numbers." And I said, "Yeah, it's a lot of red numbers, but we have time on our side as we look forward out, 15 years or so from our retirement moment, and being able to say, hey, there is time on our side, and it's okay. Those numbers are going to be green big in one day or 2 days or 3 days, and red another day, and ride out the curve, if you will."
Yep. So 2008 is close enough for all of us to remember. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people got really scared in that 2008 time period. And that was a long dip. That was definitely not a V recovery. That was more of a U, or even some people said an L recovery for a while.
Kind of a hockey stick in some regards.
Yeah, it went down and stayed down, and then it came back up, and it came back quick. And so really hard to make those timing moments going in. And so there was a lot of people that took their money out in the down market, fearing that it was going to go down even further. Well, still, with the volatility we've had right now, if you had have invested your money before the downturn at the absolute peak in the market,
Mm-hmm.
and if you had have been in a moderate aggressive account, not even a fully aggressive, and you just kept it in there, you stayed in there, you left it go, you let it go all the way down, you just didn't look at it, and you rode it all the way back up, you still would have more than doubled your money
Right.
today.
Yeah,
If
I
you
know
would.
one of the things that I did at that time frame in 2008, I think it was actually late 2008, looking at converting the funds that I had in an IRA to a Roth IRA,
Oh
and
yeah.
then took the tax penalty because the dollars were lower at that time. But as you mentioned, Kent, now that we've seen, that we're past, almost to the end of 2020, and looking back to 2008, that is almost ancient history. And that chart is definitely much better for that Roth IRA. And as we know, that the funds are there in a tax-free environment when we go to take them out. So
Yeah, good job, Todd. Yep, and I think we'll have some Roth conversion opportunities probably next week. I mean, we've got there's no vaccine yet for COVID. If
mhm.
we look at what other countries are doing right now, there's some extreme measures going on. There's fear we'll do those measures here. We don't have an additional stimulus package yet, so that has a lot of fear as well coming in. And then of course the elections, which has uncertainties. And so really when the elections happen, doesn't matter who you want to win and who doesn't. There's 50% of the population is going to be up with who gets
Right.
voted into the presidency. So there's probably going to be a knee-jerk reaction, and we'll probably see even more volatility immediately after, and then things can start climbing once that uncertainty settles down a little bit.
Well, we're
Um,
glad that you're here with us today and glad for the conversation today and being able to provide that somewhat of a crystal ball. And I know you're getting ready to point there at Mr. Nick, and I think he's got a great whiteboard there behind him. So I'm going to turn off my camera and mute out so that we don't have my technology and you don't have me barging in on the conversation.
oh,
But
thanks.
we appreciate you guys being able to share this information and valuable insight, not only for our members who are watching today, but also welcome those who are joining us today, as well as those who will see this as a recording. So I'm going to kill my camera and my mic and turn it over to you, Mr. Nick.
All right, I'm gonna sit right here. Hopefully you can see me all right on the GoPro. I'm gonna get down a little bit. I'm tall, I'm super tall. But as we get into this right here on the whiteboard, I wanna say something, and I want everyone out there watching and listening to remember this saying right here. Emotions are incredible servants. They're terrible leaders. What does that mean? Well, how can you enjoy a beautiful sunset if you don't have any emotions? How can you enjoy a nice evening out with your spouse if you have no emotions? You're not going to. You're not even going to know what enjoyment is if you have no emotions, right? So emotions serve to make that sunset beautiful. Emotions serve to make that evening out with your spouse enjoyable and romantic. However, if we let our emotions lead us, we can probably all raise our hand and say, yeah, there's been times where I let my emotions get the best of me, and it led me to doing something I wish I wouldn't have done. I'm not asking you to raise your hand. I'm not asking you to mention in the chat box, like, yep, that's me. Just think about that. Emotions are great servants, terrible leaders. With that said, what you're about to see here on the whiteboard helps us take emotions out of leading our investment directions. Does that make sense? So what we like to see people do is basically develop a bucket strategy. And Kent, help me make sure that I'm drawn in a spot where it can be seen on the whiteboard easily.
Yep, you're doing good.
Okay.
So really, we're talking about risk and risk mitigation, and time determines risk. And you know, our last video, you can go back and look. We talk about the difference between trading and investing, and a lot of that is time based. And so today we're going to break down the investing part of that and how to really lower your risk based on time.
All right, so here's our bucket strategy. And here we have bucket number 1. And the purpose of bucket 1 is to have money that's set aside. We're going to call it your emergency reserves. Now, if you're in your 30s, 40s, the middle of your working stage, common financial practice tells us that you should have 3 to 6 months of emergency reserves set aside. To take the fear out of investing for retirement, when you're looking at your retirement days, we would say you should have 1 to 3 years of cash set aside in bucket number 1. The whole purpose of your first bucket is one word: protection. Because the day that you need $1, you need that dollar to be worth $1. So you're not looking for growth. If you were to look at a performance line on bucket 1, your performance line should look completely flat. And that should make you completely happy, because you don't want any money in bucket 1 to be at risk, especially when you're in retirement. So we say 1 to 3 years of cash on hand. And where should that money be? This is money that you have in your checking. This is money that you have in your high yield savings. Maybe you would put a little bit in some like laddered CDs. And that would be okay to have a small portion of that if you're wanting it to earn a little bit more. But the whole point is this: it has to be liquid and it has to be safe. Now, when you understand this, you know how to measure the performance of money that you would have in bucket 1. Its performance should basically be flat. And when you see that performance in that statement, so you get your checking account statement online, you look at your savings account statement online, and you see that it earned 0.02% interest in that period, you are ecstatic, because it means that your money was perfectly safe. And had you experienced an emergency in that time, your money would have been safe and ready for you. Now, bucket number 2. Bucket number 2, we call your income engine. And I know that my writing is probably really small on your screen, but you can be writing this down. This is money that's sort of in that 4 to 9 year time frame. And an income engine is, you're not looking for huge growth. What you're looking for is an annual yield. The type of asset that we would call a bucket 2 asset, a great example would be a rental property. If you think about a rental property, its value on Zillow is probably going to go like this. It's going to fluctuate some. Real estate typically always goes up. But you're not really worried about the value. You're not on Zillow every single Monday morning checking the value of that rental property. What you are concerned about is, did the rent check get paid by my renters in March, April, May, June, July, so on and so forth. As long as that rental is occupied and it is producing income for you, you know how to measure that asset correctly. You're not looking at the growth of the asset, you're looking at the income produced by that asset. So what you would want in bucket 2 would be rental properties. You're also looking for assets that are going to provide either interest or assets that are going to provide dividends? Assets that are making you money. What do you do with the money that's earned in bucket 2? Well, if you're not in retirement yet, say you're 10 years out, you can let it be just invested right back into these assets, making the amount that you have in bucket 2 larger. Or if you're in retirement and let's say you're supplementing your monthly income from bucket 1, if you've got a little bit going out on a monthly basis, say you've got X dollars per month going out, ideally what you want to see is bucket 2 producing 12 X dollars a year going in. You want to be replacing bucket 1's burn rate on an annual basis from bucket 2. Well, where does that leave the rest of your investments, and what type of investments should they be in? Bucket number 3. The whole point of bucket number 3 is this is money that you are not going to touch for 10 plus years. As Todd was mentioning earlier in the comment that he made to his wife, like, hey, it's okay. We're 15 years out from retirement. We can weather the storm because we don't worry about the value today. We're projecting where we're wanting it to be 10, 15, 20 years from now. Kent mentioned at the very beginning of this webinar, how long are people living in retirement? Very easily, they're living 30 years in retirement. So you need to have assets that are in a growth bucket. And the whole purpose of bucket 3 is simply you want to see the growth. We know that the market's volatile. We had leading up to 08 and we had the crash. And now we've built back up and we're having dips and unexpected volatility. Generally speaking, though, if you took this microcosm right here and drew it out over a 10 to 12 year period, right, you're seeing lines that look like this. But as long as we're generally trending in this direction, we're excited because the reality is you're looking for the value of this account at some point that's clear off of the whiteboard. So what type of assets do you have in bucket 3? Well, bucket 3, you're really looking at equities. Equities are stocks, ownership. You want to be owning companies that are growing, and there's a couple ways to get into those. You can do straight equities. You could do mutual funds. One mutual fund is going to own several different companies or several different equities, so that's giving you some diversity there. What we really like at Tree City Advisors are ETFs, or exchange traded funds. It's one fund that behaves like a stock, so it can be bought and sold every single day if you want to. But within that exchange traded fund, it has multiple companies that represent it, so you're getting diversity there with really low management fees. And the whole goal of bucket 3, we've all heard this before when it comes to investing, but this is what we're looking to do over the long term. Buy low and sell high. So as you're working through your strategy, you're looking at things and you might say, oh, well, today looks like a pretty high point in the market. It looks decent here. I'm willing to sell some, move it over to bucket 2, which is only going to increase the yield on bucket 2. And then I'm ready to take back off and start growing bucket number 3. What does this do for you? Well, having this strategy, again, it takes your emotions out of your investments. When your money is allocated properly, it doesn't matter if the market's crashing right now. You've got plenty of cash on hand. You've got assets that are still giving you a yield on an annual basis. And it's an opportunity actually to buy low. You're getting excited that the market's going down because now you have an opportunity to do what bucket 3 needs to do. You can buy more low and sell it high later on. takes the fear out of investing, because we say all the time, right, Kent, that time mitigates all risk. If you're young in investing, you just started participating in a company 401k, well, you should have bucket one with your checking and savings account 3 to 6 months, but everything else in your 401k, if you just started at that company, you can all allocate it according to bucket three, because your time frame prior to retirement is quite lengthy. And this is a way that, regardless of your personality, whether you're a natural born risk taker or naturally born conservative, this strategy helps take the fear out of investing and helps you maximize your long-term earning potential regardless of your personality type. And that's really helpful. Oh.
So I hope that was helpful, seeing our bucket strategy and what we do. Really, that's not a rule of thumb. It's a general guidelines for everybody, and everybody's plan is different. The next topic we're going to discuss is debt management versus, paying yourself and growing your assets. I believe it was Benjamin Franklin said, money makes money, and the money that money makes also makes money. So that's compound interest. It's the most powerful force on earth. And just did some future value calculations for a younger gal yesterday, helping her out, getting some ideas on planning for the future. And she's being really smart. She's investing into her 401k. And even young people, it's a completely normal concept for them to have a car payment.
Yeah.
And it's a normal concept for them to even have a $400 car payment. We see that a lot. So a $400 payment a month, if you pay that to yourself to earn interest or to earn returns going into the stock market, let's be conservative, S&P 500, 7% return, 22-year-old putting $400 a month into the market or even to a Roth IRA, that's over $1 million. And if she went into a Roth IRA or the Roth portion of her 401k, then now she has over $1 million of tax-free money for retirement. If you wait until you're in your 40s, let's say 42 instead of 22, that's when the majority of United States residents, citizens start gaining wealth, is in their 40s. If you start at 42 years old to have the same amount of money, you would have to invest over $20,000 a year. So the $400 a year, that's $4,800 a year. It's $4,800 a year when you're 22, have over $1 million. If you wait till you're 42, that's over $20,000 a year just to have the same amount of money. So that's that time value of money on compounding, but then it's also the time determines the risk. Now, if that 22-year-old, if she's scared about what is the market doing right now, and she just goes into something conservative or in treasury bonds, then it's not going to be worth over $1 million. She's not going to get that return. She's not going to hardly get a gumball at the end of the year. And so that's really, you're planning for those years out. You need to be well diversified and not in one single company. And I will plug this again because people get really confused, and there's a lot of hype because trading is fun. Trading is attractive. People watch, movies and TVs, and you see that stock exchange floor, and it's exciting, and there's really a draw to it. When you hear there's some gambling with the stock market, that is trading. There's not gambling in investing a long period of time in a well-diversified portfolio. But again, we talked about this last time, but if you buy any one individual stock, you're one lawsuit away from losing all of your money. So that's a gamble. That's the trading. If you run a risk, I use the airlines as an example, but there's a lot of volatility with airlines right now. it's a gamble. If you're going to be invested over the next month with any specific airline, uh, or even all of the airlines, that's a big risk. They could still go down quite a bit in value. If you're 10 years out and you have some airline stock already and you're really worried that it could go down even more and you just pull it out, well, you just took your paper losses and made them into actual losses. And now you don't have the opportunity to make those back. If you leave that in there, there's a really high probability in 10 years, those airline stocks are going to be worth a lot more than they are today, right now. I'd even say in the next year and a half, 3 years, you'll have that high probability.
For sure. For sure.
I would say emotional risk is the number one risk to people's portfolio, because we talk about market risk. There's the individual company risk. We talked about that. There's also the longevity risk. And so if you go too conservative in your portfolio, then you build that longevity risk. You risk losing purchasing power. So right now, those T-bills, they're not keeping up with inflation even. And so if you have your money into that, that's the safe, secure money, or even, just interest rates are so low right now, it's not keeping up with inflation. So you will lose purchasing power. So then you're running the risk of longevity, that your money will not last as long as you do. And so that's where the bucket strategy is really needed, that Nick was talking about, to spread that out and to spread that risk so that you can have the opportunity to ride that ride, to really go out and minimize the market risk, but then you're also taking the longevity risk off the table. But what's always on the table is your own personal emotions that Nick talked about. And so even the psychology part of it is, people are more afraid to lose money than they are excited to make money. So people have a higher strength in their concerns to lose 3% than even having the opportunity of gaining 10%. So we're constantly looking at risk adjusted returns. And so, for the amount of risk that you're taking on, what's the opportunity of the returns that you're going to receive? And a lot of that is minimized by using the bucket system, but it's something to always consider, that what we look at. And that's something that can help you take the emotions off the table as well. Mm-hmm. And I would say personally, I'm in this. I look at it every day. I see my own stuff. But every time I have a financial decision for my own money, for my own family, I bring in an advisor. I ask Nick, hey, Nick, can I run this by you? I bring in Brian or Jeremiah or Alex on our team, and I have them. I'm like, hey, I need you to look at this. You're on the outside. I need to tell me objectively and not emotionally what is mathematically the best thing for me to do in this position. And I would say that debt management loops right back into that. It's really easy to fall in love with a car, that $400 payment into a new vehicle rather than $400 payment into my own retirement. But a car is a depreciating asset. Mm-hmm. I've heard people say that cars are the number one downfall to the American retirement system, because so much money goes into these depreciating assets, and that opportunity cost, because if money goes there, then it can't go somewhere else. So if your money's going into your cars, and if you're buying a new car every 3 years, but you're not putting any money into retirement, I would take a step back, look at the opportunity cost right now, but look at that opportunity cost 10, 20, 30, 60 years from now. And I'm a car guy. I love cars. I love the Caped truck. I love it. The sound of that engine is amazing. It's a beautiful thing. And that's where my own emotions, I have to go back to saying, okay, what's actually a priority here? What do I really want to accomplish? And are my intentions in alignment with my actions? So, okay, I intend to really save for retirement. I intend to save this emergency reserve, but then what are my actions? Okay, let's take a look. Let's look at my my bank statements. What am I actually spending money on? Am I spending money on the things that are in alignment with my priorities? Most times they're not. Mass majority of people that we actually take a step back and look, because most people aren't looking at their bank statements. They have no clue what they're spending their money on. I worked with a couple that they had no idea until I sat down and looked at this with them, that they were spending almost $400 a month on Amazon Prime videos, that their toddlers had control of the remote and they were playing these videos that you're paying to watch every time. And they had no clue. They weren't watching it, that they made plenty of money, and it just wasn't on the radar. So I was like, oh my goodness, when we fix that on intentions and in actions, they were super thankful. But I would encourage all of you watching this video right now, take a step back, create a fun date night with your spouse if you're married, or dating somebody and you're open with those conversations. If you're not, do it yourself. Make it as fun as it can be. Let's be honest, it's not fun. But do it. It's you'll learn something about yourself, and it will have a positive impact in your life on just making sure where your money goes is where you want your money to go.
One of the things we have here at CapEd is a software program that's part of our online banking called Money Tracker. And then we also have a budgeting tool within our e-banking platform that's available both online as well as within an app. And I think to your point there, Kent, of making sure you know where your money's going. I've had the experience in my life as I've sat down with my wife and we've looked at it and we're like, whoa, wow, did you know that we spent this much on that item? Yeah, that was kind of cool, but not that cool. And it helps to make sure you know what the priorities are.
Man, Todd, I bet CapEd used a lot of resources on R&D, on getting that software available for your members, which adds a ton of value to your members. And I would really encourage the members to use it.
Absolutely.
Take the time.
We have within that capacity, sorry to cut you off there for a second, but we do have the capacity inside of our mobile app that you can not only look at your CapEd resources, but you can also aggregate all of your non-CapEd accounts. That includes your items at TD Ameritrade or other places that you may have investments housed at. So when you log into the CapEd app, they're all in one place to be able to see that information.
Oh my gosh.
And I find that very helpful.
That is so helpful. That adds a ton of value. Do you know how expensive that is if you go to another, financial professional and you ask them to do that on your behalf? That's
it's a service fee to be able to do that. And for us, we provide that as a no-cost solution and service to our members for our e-banking. And then inside of e-banking, the desktop or the mobile app, we have the services called Money Tracker. And then there's also a budgeting tool that's there available as well.
Yep. That's great, Todd. I'd really encourage people to use that. That'd be the first step to go to. And then if you need additional help with efficiencies, once you've got that under control, then watch these videos, watch all of the series. You can reach out and ask for further questions with us and our team at Tree City. There's a lot of great resources out there. There's no excuse anymore. Right. Age. Yep.
I mean, a lot of it's just based off of what you're willing to put into it and the time you're willing to invest in gaining understanding, information. I find, and I'll give a plug to you guys for your Real Money Pros radio program, and that's on Monday through Friday from 6 to 7 p.m. on 670 AM KBOI. I find that as, I'm traveling home for work or traveling from here to there, and turn on the radio and listen to the conversation, listen to the scenarios that you share. Obviously, you always maintain confidentiality of your clients, but you're giving real life examples and experiences that you've had with your fiduciary responsibilities with your clients. So we would encourage those who are listening to hear live, as well as those who tune in to the recording, to take an opportunity, gain the information, gain the understanding, gain the knowledge, and then take those baby steps. I know we hear Dave Ramsey say, take those baby steps. And as you take those steps, you're able to move forward.
Yep. And every Friday is CapEd case study hour. So we go through scenarios. These are real people. This is real life. And a lot of people can relate to those CapEd case studies.
You're not the only one.
Yeah.
The problems that you're facing. So it's a great way to just realize, oh, I'm human and this happens to a lot of people. And here's how you overcome.
Yep. And don't look at the past. I mean, just forget the past. It's over, but you can control what you do now and what happens in the future.
Yeah, so, you can't control the past. You can learn from it. And if you don't, it will have an impact on the present and the future.
Yep.
Well, Nick and Kent, we appreciate you being here with us today. I'm going to open up the chat and see if we have any questions come in from those here. For those who are participants today and join us here, we may have a few moments here if you have any questions. Open up the chat and then post them in there. We may wait for some of those questions that might come in. Can you guys restate your phone number for Tree City Advisors and your web address where folks can reach out to you as well as other members or other individuals at Tree City Advisors?
Yeah, I'll type it in the chat box. Phone number is 208-888-1244. And then I'd really encourage you to go to therealmoneypros.com. And you can use Ask the Experts feature there, and you can type in a question. So if you have a more personal question, you don't want to type it in a chat box or ask today, go ahead and go to therealmoneypros.com and use the Ask the Experts feature. And that actually sends out an email to our whole team. And so we just try to get those answered as fast as we can. And we try to answer them complete. What drives me nuts is I go online and I have a question and they just answer it vague, and it makes me search even more for an answer. We try to just answer your question.
Yeah, it's not our attempt to get you into our office and have a meeting. It's our intent to get you the answer that you asked so that you can keep moving forward.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. We appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the buckets there, Nick. That concept was introduced to me quite a few years ago. And I appreciated just that simple insight of saying, okay, where should my money be going and at what time frame? And so that we can plan for not only today, but in the short term and then the long term. And I think that's an important concept that people get stuck on. That you do have to just take those baby steps a little bit by little bit. So our appreciation to you, Nick and Kent. We have you guys coming up in 2 weeks again with some additional information on debt recovery or debt elimination and how to move through those items. But we remind everybody who's watching today that you can view this recording and the other recordings from our prior webinars at capedcu.com/lunchmoney. Again, that's capedcu.com/lunchmoney. This presentation will be available in a couple of days, as well as the one from Tuesday. And then join us this coming Tuesday and Thursday for a presentation from Toby King, CapEd's Chief Information Officer on cybersecurity. So with that, we'll bid everybody have a great afternoon and enjoy the great week and stay safe out there and enjoy Halloween. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Kent.
Bye, Todd.
Bye-bye.
Bye.